Asterisk, the man who came to pay a debt. Asterisk, Part 1. The valley floor was a sea of thawing mud, thick and hungry, pulling at the hooves of Rianne's roan horse with every step. Each sound it made felt like a breath being dragged from the earth itself. Rianne leaned forward in the saddle, chin tucked low, his battered hat pulled down against the sharp spring wind. This was the season that fooled men, the narrow space between winter's quiet and spring's violence, when the land smelled of rot and rain and something sharp like metal in the air. Nothing was settled in a time like this, least of all a man's fate. Rianne had been riding for 3 days. His body ached, but it was not the saddle that weighed on him most. Inside his duster, pressed tight against his ribs, was an oilskin packet. It felt heavier than the Colt revolver riding on his hip. The money inside was not his. It belonged to a man named Rianne, crushed to death in a silver mine 2 counties back. With his last breaths, Rianne had spoken of a wife and a thin piece of land, hidden in a forgotten valley. Rianne was not known for kindness, but he lived by a hard rule. Debts were meant to be paid, even when the man owed was already in the ground. The homestead appeared when the creek bent east. It was a small gray house, leaning away from the wind, as if tired of standing. The fence around it was broken and sagging, rails half sunk into mud and rot. A dead garden clung to the ground nearby, nothing but dry stalks and tangled vines. The place felt empty, like it was waiting for something that might never return. Rianne felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He had seen places like this before. They were the marks left behind by losing fights. He reined in near what used to be a gate and swung down from the saddle. The silence pressed hard, broken only by the creek rushing past and the wind whispering through a lone cottonwood. He tied his horse and walked toward the barn, boots sinking deep into the soaked ground. Mud swallowed the sound of his spurs. He did not find her in the house. She sat beneath the barn's overhang, her back to him, perched on an overturned crate. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight braid. She wore a heavy wool coat that was clearly too large, the sleeves rolled back thick at the cuffs. Rianne stopped 10 paces away, his hand drifting near his belt before falling back to his side. She was not armed. Her body was bent forward, protective, focused on something held close. He cleared his throat. The sound felt loud and rough in the quiet. She stiffened, then turned slowly. Her face was pale and sharp, her eyes dark and steady. In her lap, wrapped in the folds of the coat, were 3 tiny kittens. Their eyes were barely open, cloudy blue, their small mouths opening and closing as they made weak sounds. She held a rag dipped in milk, touching it gently to the smallest one, a thin scrap of orange fur that looked close to giving up. The sight stopped Rianne cold. He had come expecting grief, or anger, or the blank stare of hunger. He had not expected this quiet fight to keep something alive. "I did not mean to startle you," he said. His voice sounded old to his own ears. "I am looking for Rianne's widow." They said this was his claim. She looked at him, then back at the kittens, then at the gun on his hip. "I am May," she said. Her voice was soft but did not shake. "He is gone." Rianne stepped closer and pulled the oilskin packet from his coat. He set it on a barrel beside her. "I know," he said. "He worked the Copperhead claim. The timber failed. This is his pay and his share." May did not touch the packet. She kept feeding the kitten, her hands red and raw from cold. "The timber failed," she repeated. "He said it was green. He said it would not hold." "He was right," Rianne said quietly. It did not. For a long moment neither spoke. The wind moved through the broken boards above them. "Why the cats?" Rianne asked at last. "They are more mouths to feed." May tucked the small orange kitten against her neck. "Their mother froze last week," she said. "They were crying." I could not let silence be the only thing left here. The words settled heavy in the air. Rianne looked around the barn, at the sagging roof and the thin mule standing in shadow. The money on the barrel suddenly felt useless. Paper could not fix rot or hold back weather. He should have left then. The debt was paid. But his feet did not move. "The fence is down," he said instead. By the creek. I know, May replied. She set the kittens into a box lined with straw and stood. She was taller than he had expected. I cannot fix it. The posts are rotted. I do not have the strength. It was not a complaint, just a fact. She wiped her hands on her coat. Thank you for bringing this. There is tea if you wish. It is weak, but it is hot. Rianne nodded and followed her into the house. It was clean and bare. A small stove gave off a thin warmth. As she set a kettle on the fire, Rianne stood near the door, hat in his hands. I can fix the fence, he said. The words surprised him as much as they did her. She studied him, her eyes moving over his worn clothes and scarred hands. You are not a carpenter. No, he said, but I can dig, and I can swing a hammer. The money will help later. The fence needs fixing now. The tension in her face eased, just a little. There is stew, she said, mostly potato. They ate in silence as rain began to tap the roof. Later, when the light faded, Rianne slept in the barn. The kittens huddled together in the corner, small and warm. Outside, the wind moved across the valley, and Rianne lay awake, wondering when a simple debt had turned into something he could no longer walk away from. Part 2. Morning came gray and wet, the kind of dawn that felt unsure of itself. Rianne rose stiff from the barn floor, his joints aching as if the land itself had worked him through the night. The kittens stirred when he moved, a small pile of breath and fur. One of them let out a thin sound, and Rianne paused, struck by how loud something so small could be in a world this quiet. He stepped outside and drew in a long breath. The rain had softened to a mist. The valley lay low and hidden, wrapped in damp air. This place did not forgive weakness, but it also did not rush. It waited. Rianne set to work on the fence before the sun fully climbed. The posts came out hard, each one fighting him like it wanted to stay buried and rot in peace. Mud sucked at his boots. His hands blistered and split, but he did not slow. The labor was simple and honest, and it burned away thoughts he did not want to hold. By mid-morning, May appeared at the edge of the yard with a tin cup of water. She said nothing at first, just stood and watched him wrestle a new post into the ground. When he finally packed the earth tight around it, he leaned on the shovel, breathing hard. It will hold, he said. It will, she answered. She left the cup near him and went back to the house. Rianne drank slowly, then returned to work. The hours passed in a rough rhythm. Dig, set, pack, move on. That afternoon, he moved to the roof. The boards were soft, the nails rusted thin. He replaced what he could, sealing out the worst of the leaks. From up high, he could see the whole valley. It was small, boxed in by hills, easy to forget, easy to take from. When he climbed down, May had laid out bread and stew on the porch. They ate without speaking. The silence no longer felt sharp, it felt shared. Days followed like that. Rianne fixed what his hands could reach. The fence straightened, the woodpile grew, the barn door hung true again. May worked beside him in her own way, clearing the garden, tending the mule, feeding the kittens. They did not speak much, but they learned each other's movements. When one stepped back, the other stepped in. At night, Rianne slept in the barn or by the stove when the cold pressed too hard. He cleaned his revolver by firelight out of habit, careful and slow. May watched once, not afraid, just thoughtful. One afternoon, a rider appeared on the ridge. Rianne saw him first, a big man on a bay horse, wearing a fine coat that did not belong in mud. Rianne kept chopping wood, but his body shifted, his stance widening. His eyes never left the rider. The man rode straight up to the house where May was sweeping the porch. I told you before, the rider said loudly, the bank has a buyer. This land is done. This land is mine, May said. The deed is in my name. The man laughed. A woman alone out here. Accidents happen. Fires happen. Rianne stopped chopping. He stepped forward, slow and calm. He did not reach for his gun. He did not need to. Accidents do happen, Rianne said, especially to men who ride where they are not wanted. The rider turned, his smile dying when he saw Rianne's eyes. He swallowed. Just delivering a message. Name's Voss. Message delivered, Rianne said. Now ride." Voss did not argue. He turned his horse and left in a hurry, mud flying behind him. May stood frozen, the broom tight in her hands. "You did not have to do that," she said.
"I know," Rianne replied, "but you should not face them alone."
That night, the air inside the house felt charged. May mended one of Rianne's shirts while he sat near the stove, the revolver heavy in his hands. "You have hands made for harm," she said quietly. "They are the only ones I have," he said. "But today they built something." She crossed the room and rested her fingers on his arm. "That counts." The days warmed. The mud dried. The kittens grew bold, the orange one attacking Rianne's boots with tiny teeth. He laughed once, a rough sound that surprised him both. One morning they worked the garden together. Rianne drove the spade. May set the seeds. "You are staring," she said. "I am," he answered. "This land is lucky to have you." She looked at him, something soft and steady in her eyes. "It is luckier not to stand alone." As the work neared its end, Rianne felt the pull of the road return. The fence stood straight. The roof no longer leaked. His reason for staying was nearly gone, and that truth weighed heavier than the labor ever had. He found May in the barn one evening. "The gate swings smooth," he said. "I know," she replied. "It is good work." Her words sounded like a farewell. Rianne nodded, though his chest felt tight. Outside, the wind moved through the valley, carrying the promise of change. Part 3. The morning Rianne planned to leave arrived wrapped in mist. The valley was quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed close and waited. He saddled the roan without hurry, each strap pulled tight with care, as if delaying the moment would change its shape. The fence stood straight behind him. The gate swung clean. The work was done. May waited on the porch with a small bundle of food tied in cloth. She did not step closer. She held herself still, like someone bracing against a strong wind. "Be safe," she said. "May the road treat you fair." Rianne took the bundle. Their fingers brushed and both pulled back too fast. He nodded once, swung into the saddle, and gathered the reins. From up there, everything looked distant. The house, the barn, the woman standing alone in the gray morning. Something inside him broke loose. He looked down at her, at the land behind her, at the barn where 3 kittens now chased dust in the light. He saw the man he had been riding 3 weeks ago, hard and empty, living only by motion. That man did not belong here, but neither did the man sitting on the horse now. "I cannot," he said. May's eyes lifted, sharp with surprise. "You cannot what?" Rianne dropped the reins. He swung down from the saddle, boots hitting the earth with a dull thud. He crossed the short distance between them, his heart pounding like he was stepping into a gunfight. "I cannot ride out," he said. "The fence is fixed. I am not." Her breath caught. She did not speak. "I do not want the road," he went on. "I want the garden. I want to see the kittens grow. I want this place, and I want you." A tear slipped down her cheek. "This is a hard life," she said. "There is no glory here." "I do not want glory," Rianne said. He leaned in and kissed her. It was not gentle at first. It was raw and sure. 2 lonely people holding on like the ground might fall away. When he pulled back, both were breathing hard. "I will put the horse away," he said. May smiled through tears. "He is not going anywhere." Rianne led the roan back to the barn. He unsaddled him slowly, then unbuckled his gun belt. The Colt felt heavy and strange in his hands. He hung it on a wooden peg, high in the shadows. It was still there if needed, but it was no longer his purpose. He stepped back into the light. May stood by the garden gate. The orange kitten perched on her shoulder, bold and bright. She held out a small handful of seeds. "Corn," she said. "We need to finish the row." Rianne took the seeds and knelt beside her. The soil was cool and ready.
"We will finish it," he said.
"We have time." They worked side by side as the mist lifted and the sun broke through. The valley did not change, but Rianne did. He was no longer a man passing through. He was a man who stayed.